Hey y'all, are you in the mood for Thanksgiving? I am going to show you how to make a budget Thanksgiving meal today with some honey butter rolls, mustard greens from the scratch, sweet potato pie, mac and cheese, sausage stuffed chicken, and a homemade gravy. This is not going to look, feel, or taste like a budget meal, but I am going to be giving you some money saving tips as I cook. Check out my ebook in the description box and let's get started. Now we're going to start off by making some cornbread. I'm going to take a teaspoon of vinegar and put it in a cup and 1/4 of whole milk. And I'm just going to let this sit at the room temperature for about 30 minutes. This type of like pseudo buttermilk is fine for a recipe like this. I'm making more of a traditional Southern style cornbread that is higher in the proportion of cornmeal than it is flour. I'm going to be using 2 cups of cornmeal, a 1/2 cup of flour, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, just 2 tablespoons of sugar, and no, it will not be sweet. Okay, I'm going to mix this together, and then I'm going to make a little well in the middle of the dry ingredients. Into that, I'm going to add 2 eggs and a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, but you could use butter. I'm then going to add in my buttermilk, and I'm going to slowly mix this together. I like to mix it together first in the middle just to incorporate the wet ingredients, and then I will just slowly go around until it is fully combined. Now, I've had my cast iron skillet. Y'all know Sister Mabel. She be heating up in the oven at 400 degrees with about a tablespoon of lard. So this is nice and hot. And then I'm going to put in my cornbread. Now, this mixture is going to cook in about 18 to 20 minutes. This is a little bit of a drier cornbread because I'm making this just to go in this dressing, okay? You want to allow this to cool. It is best to do this the night before, so it's the next day, and I have let this sit out overnight open so that it can get dry, a little bit stale, and I'm going to cut this into cubes. Making this cornbread from scratch, this cornbread recipe is only going to cost like $1.50. So this is really cheap, but you could also just get like a box of cornbread mix for like 50 cents and make that. I am then going to add some butter and a pound of breakfast sausage. Now, I have seen sausage anywhere from about $2.50 to $3 a pound. It depends on where you buy it from. So I have often seen sausage at Aldi for about $2.50 for a pound. So you could go there and get that. I'm going to let this cook, and then I'm going to add in a 1/2 an onion, a bell pepper, and celery. These are all really affordable vegetables that most of you will have around. Plus, once you buy the pack of onion or celery or peppers, there's plenty left over for other meals. So it's just a couple change to get in these vegetables. I'm going to saute these until they are nice and soft, which is going to take about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to be adding in some garlic and some seasonings. Now, the seasonings you use, I would say go for what you already have in your house. So I'm using a combination of garlic and onion powder, some poultry seasoning, some chicken seasoning, and I'm going to add fresh herbs. These herbs come from my garden, so they are absolutely free. Sage, thyme, and rosemary. And I encourage you all to either start growing some, or you know what, go to a friend garden, okay? I bet you they got some that they willing to give you. So this is going to be cheap, okay? Let this saute for like 2 minutes, and y'all, the aroma, oh my gosh, once that sage hits the pan, you know it's Thanksgiving. Now, I wanted to also put in some dried herbs, so I just went in with some dried poultry seasoning too, and I just tasted it and did my thing. I'm going to add this into the cornbread, and I'm going to mix it up, and once I had it combined, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more seasoning, so I ended up adding a teaspoon of dried chicken bouillon powder. You don't want to go crazy with it because you want to remember you're going to add a little chicken broth to the cornbread. Plus, it's going to get some seasonings from the chicken. You will see me add some low sodium chicken broth later on in the recipe, but one thing I would suggest you do is go ahead and add the cup of chicken broth right now before you put it in the chicken, because really if your chicken's not juicy enough, it might come out a little dry. So go ahead and put that cup of chicken broth in your stuffing right now. Now y'all go ahead and say hello to Shelby. This our 5-pound chicken, girl. We gonna make up Shelby and she gonna taste real good. Okay. We gonna add on these seasonings. This is some poultry seasoning, a little bit of chicken bouillon powder, salt-free Cajun seasoning. Y'all, we about to get Shelby right. Okay. Now you don't have to use the seasonings I'm using. Remember, use whatever you have in your house. Okay, y'all, they got seasons up at the Dollar Tree. Just do whatever you need to do, okay, to get the food the way you want it to taste. Okay, so I'm gonna put some seasoning on her front and her back. I'm gonna pull her shirt up a little bit. Okay, and we gonna put on some unsalted butter. We don't want them breasts to get dry. Okay, that's not gonna be right. Okay, and then we're gonna rub the seasoning under the dress. Okay, because some people, they just do the skin, but the skin ain't the only thing we eating. Okay, so I'm gonna put in some butter between the legs as well and the thigh meat, and then I'm gonna season the inside and the outside of the chicken with the rest of this good old seasoning. Now, this meal is really fit for a family of maybe like 5 to maximum 6, maybe 5, and you got a little kid, you know what I'm saying? Now, if you throwing a big extravaganza, I don't know if you can get this meal for like $55. But if it's just you and your family, I think this is a really good meal option. Let me know if you'll be trying this budget Thanksgiving meal in the comments. Now, I done just stuffed Shelby up with this mixture, and I'm gonna tie up them legs. Okay, we gonna tie them up. Now some of y'all fancy. Y'all got the kitchen twine. I don't got that. Okay, I got foil that I can wrap up into a little piece of string, and I'm gonna tie them legs up. Okay, now then I'm going to take the rest of the stuffing and I'm going to just put it around the pan, and I think it just looks so pretty around the pan like this, guys. Now, this is why I said I would have went ahead and added that chicken broth early, because the ones on the outside, I had to go ahead and add some chicken broth later, as you will see. So you won't have that issue if you do it, the way I'm telling you. Okay, so I'm going to cover this up with foil, and I'm going to put this in the oven at 375 degrees for an hour and 20 minutes. After that time, I am going to take off the foil. Now, this foil has had it, staying nice and juicy and cooking from the inside, okay, which is really the big concern with these stuffed chickens. And so now you see me adding the broth, but of course, if you add it early, you may not need to do this. You could also mix the stuffing on the outside at this point. However, I wanted mine to look kind of cute for the thumbnail, but y'all ain't making thumbnails, okay? So you just go ahead and you mix the stuffing on the outside of this point as well. Make sure that you're using low sodium though, because you don't want the salt to go out of control. I mixed a little bit of butter with some lemon zest and a little bit of honey, and I brushed it on the outside of the chicken because now we want it to brown up. I'm going to put it back into the oven for about 15 more minutes. Then I covered up one of the legs and the dressing because one of the legs was getting really brown, and I also did not want the dressing to dry out. Then I let it cook for an additional 15 minutes and then broiled for about 1 minute to get the color that I wanted. In my opinion, the key to a great mac and cheese is good brand cheeses, quality cheese. Now, I'm using a lot of name brands here, but I got most of this on sale or I got it from Costco. Well, you may be surprised to find out that the name brand extra sharp cheddar cheese and mozzarella was the exact same price as the great value cheese per pound. So I went and got that from Costco. I'm going to cook the noodles according to the package instructions and a little chicken bouillon and salt. I'm going to drain them. Then I'm going to go in with some unsalted butter, about 1.5 tablespoons of flour, and I'm going to toast this in the butter. I am then going to put in about 2.5 cups of half and half, as well as half of a cup of sour cream. I'm going to mix this together, and then I'm going to add in my cheeses to melt. Now look, you can't be doing no 5, 10, 15 cheese mac and cheese on a budget meal. Okay, so that's why I'm just using the mozzarella and the extra sharp. We don't got to be doing all that. And you know what? This mac and cheese is the bomb. Now, I typically love to put a lot of heavy cream in mine, but I'm going to hold back, okay, because the half and half is definitely more affordable. Plus, we can use this half and half in other meals, so we're going to save money that way too. I'm going to season this simply with a little Sazon, a little pepper, a little Vegeta, but you know what? Salt, pepper, and garlic powder is just fine too if that is what you have. I'm then going to add in my noodles, and I'm going to mix this together. and just the taste or the cheese, whatever it is to your liking. Now, y'all know when y'all see this pan, when y'all see that aluminum pan, you know something about to go down. Okay, look, so I'm going to go ahead and put it up in there because, you know, I'm trying to save on at least a little bit of dishes. I'm going to add on some more sharp cheddar cheese, and then I'm going to add my noodles and more cheese and paprika. So in total, you want to double the amount of cheese as compared to your noodles. So if I'm using a pound of noodles today, I'm going to use about 2 pounds of cheese. So the total cost of the cheese is about $7.50, which I think is not bad for a Thanksgiving for a big pan of mac and cheese. I cooked this on 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes just until the top got brown. Let me know, are you going to try this recipe? I thought it was super delicious. Next, we are going to make some homemade honey butter rolls, which are super affordable, made from scratch yourself, and they taste amazing. So I'm going to add in a little bit of warm water, a packet of active dry yeast, and just a little bit of sugar. I'm going to let the yeast sit for about 10 minutes, and y'all, it is fully bloomed, okay? This yeast is alive, okay? I'm going to add in some sugar and some honey. If you don't have honey or don't want to pay for that, you can just use sugar only. Okay, which is super cheap. I'm going to go in with some more homemade buttermilk. It's warmed up just a little bit, and a few tablespoons of butter. I'm going to mix this together, and I'm going to add in 1 egg, some salt, and I have 4 cups of flour. I'm going to put in about 2 cups of flour at a time. Just sort of work it in. Now, you may get some lumps, you know what I'm saying? But don't worry about that. Okay, baby, don't worry about that. Okay, and then you're going to mix it in again, the other half of the flour. You're going to find that your dough is going to be a little bit sticky. Look, honey, that's normal. I know some of y'all panic and y'all just start throwing in more flour and then your baked goods come out tough. Okay, don't do that. Okay, don't do that. You're going to ruin the recipe. Okay, now I enjoy rising my dough in my Instant Pot. I like to do it on the yogurt setting on low. I just oil my Instant Pot lid, throw it in there for 2 hours and let it rise. But you don't even need the Instant Pot to rise it. You can just put it in a bowl with a little oil and sit it in a warm spot in the kitchen for 2 hours. After that time, I'm just going to punch the air out of it, okay? And then I'm going to add some flour to the top, and then I'm going to roll it out onto a floured surface because, again, it is really sticky, okay? Now, you're going to need at least another cup of flour just to use to spread out on your board and just to cover your hands with. You want to work the dough really gently because you're not trying to make it tough. You're not kneading it. You're really just adding enough flour so that you can handle it easily. Now, tell me, what is your favorite Thanksgiving side? Now, clearly, I couldn't do every Thanksgiving side on a budget meal, so don't even be coming for me in the comments saying, well, you ain't had candy yams and you ain't had cabbage and you ain't. Look, this is a budget meal, okay? I'm gonna come for you with the switch on them legs if you try to come for me, and I ain't gonna give you no plate neither. How about that? Now I'm going to take my rolls and I'm going to divide the dough in half, and then I'm going to cut it again in half, and basically I'm going to cut it into 16 rolls. Now my pan can only fit 15 rolls, so you know you always got a small one that you end up cutting smaller than the rest. So I just took that one apart and then I put it into the rest of them. So then I had 15 rolls. Y'all know what I'm saying, okay? And then I'm going to get my butter ready so that I can butter up these rolls in the middle. There ain't nothing like a little butter cooked into the roll, okay? So I just flatten it out with my hand, you know, my little dough ball. I slather it with some butter. And then I'm going to tuck it into a buttered 9x13 pan. Now, I also got my butter from Costco. When you buy it in bulk like that, the pound of butter only ends up costing about $3.60. Y'all, I saw butter for $5 a pound. Great value butter for $5 a pound. I was so shocked. I said, since when can Walmart brand butter be $5 a pound? So I don't even mess with that, okay? So I would go ahead and get yours from Costco if you can. Now that my rolls are tucked into my pan, I'm going to put on a little bit more butter. I'm going to cover it with some plastic wrap and let it rise for about 45 minutes to 1 hour until it's doubled in size, which is going to be real easy in this hot kitchen, okay? Because I've been cooking all morning, child. Now I'm going to put this in the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. I actually cooked the mac and cheese and the rolls at the same time so they would both be hot. And then I'm going to go on with some honey and some butter. Okay, these are honey butter rolls. Just drizzle them over, and y'all, these are nice and fluffy and delicious. You guys are going to absolutely love them. Let me know what you think, okay? Now I'm going to put together my mustard greens, which I actually like better than collard greens, all right? They get more tender. I'm going to put in about 1/4 of a pound of bacon. You can use smoked turkey. You can use just some fat back. If you don't want to do the meat, you could do that as well. And then I am going to add in some onions, a little bit of Tony seasoning, as well as some garlic. I'll put in some sugar to balance out the pepperiness of the mustard greens, but it won't make it sweet. I'm also going to add in about a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. That's going to give it a great flavor. I'm going to put in some chicken bouillon, a little bit of water to make that pot liquor. Okay. And then I'm going to add in all my mustard greens. Now, I think the most affordable thing to do is to use these bouillon powders, are better than bouillon, instead of buying chicken broth boxes, which add up really quickly. If you go to Costco or Walmart, you'll see Knorr for about $5. And that's a really cheap way to get all your chicken bouillon. I'm then going to cover my mustard greens, and I'm going to let them simmer on medium low for about 1 hour. And these are some delicious mustard greens. We are making a sweet potato pie totally from the scratch. All right, I'm going to weigh out 313 grams of flour, but I will put the cup measure equivalent in the description box. Okay. You don't have to use a food processor either. You can use a pastry cutter, but I'm using a food processor because that's what I have. I'm also going to add in some salt. I'm going to put in some sugar, and I'm going to put in some cold butter and cold shortening. The shortening is super affordable, plus it makes your dough nice and flaky. I'm going to pulse this until the shortening and the butter are cut up into the flour, and it kind of feels like sand. Since they are both cold, I took them straight out of the freezer. They're going to just get, cut up into that flour really nicely. You want to work quickly because you don't want your ingredients to get warm. I'm adding in 1/2 cup of ice cold water, and I'm then going to lay out my dough onto my board. Now, my dough is not fully combined with the water, and that is perfectly fine, okay? I'm going to quickly put it together on the board. I'm going to put on some flour, and I'm not kneading here. I'm pretty much just trying to get it to just come together. I want the pie crust to stay flaky, so I don't want to overwork it. You just want to gently turn the dough into the middle of itself until you get most of the crumbs to stay together. This recipe is going to make 2 9-inch pie crusts. So I'm going to form this into 2 cylinders, gently press them down, and I'm going to wrap them in plastic wrap and refrigerate them for at least 2 hours, but you can actually do this up to 5 days in advance. This pie crust recipe actually tastes really good with all types of pies or even quiches. So if you don't have a reliable pie crust recipe yet, go ahead and save this for next time you make an apple pie or a quiche or something like that. And honey, bust out this recipe. Baby, you gonna find it hard to go back to store-bought. Now look, ain't no judgment now. If you don't got the time and you just want to buy a crust for the sweet potato pie recipe, you feel free to do that, because I done it before in the past too. Okay, no shame in that game. Okay, it's your kitchen. You do what you want. Now my pie crusts are coming out the fridge. They've been in there for about 2 hours, and I'm going to add some flour down, and I'm going to use my rolling pin to roll them out until they're about 1/4 of an inch thick or so. Now, the way that I tend to actually judge the size is that I'll roll it out into a circle, and then I will take the pie pan that I'm using, and I will see if the rim goes out about 1 inch or so, or 1.25 inches more outside of the rim. Okay, so I kind of show you that here. If it goes out about 1 inch to 1.25 inches more, then you'll know your pie crust should fit, because you want to accommodate like the sides of the pan, and of course you might want to make a cute little edge, and that should work. So I'm going to flip this into my 9-inch pie pan, and then I am going to just press it down to fit it. For this pie crust, I ended up using a fork just to crimp the edges, to just make it cute, okay? Let them know, we know homemade, okay? We know how to do a little something in the kitchen, okay? I just go crazy putting fork marks in the pie crust because we're going to par bake this at 325 for about 10 to 11 minutes because we want to give it a jump start on the filling and I don't want it to puff up. Now for the second design, I did kind of your classic crimping that you might see on the edge of a pie. So I kind of bundled up the dough around the edges and then I went in with 3 fingers and I just kind of pressed it and made a nice little crimping design. Honey, you could do either one of these. They all going to taste the same when it going down your mouth. All right. Let me know, what is your favorite Thanksgiving dessert? Even though I am making a sweet potato pie, I think that my favorite dessert is actually some cake. Honey, I love me some pound cake or some peach cobbler. Okay. Let me know what you going to do. All right. Now to make the filling, I have cooked 4 large sweet potatoes. In total, it's about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. I like to roast mine because I feel like when you boil them, you just boil out all the flavor. And I just don't like that and it gets real watery to me. So I really like to bake them. I am going to use a beater to beat them, but we have to address them strings. Baby, they going to talk about you if you leave them strings up in there. So I am going to actually take my beater out every once in a while, and I'm just going to pull the strings out and rinse them off in some water. And I'll show you me doing it here. So I have the strings, and then I have a bowl of water beside me. I actually take the beaters and I put them in the water and I just kind of beat them in the water a little bit and then just kind of flick them around, and that will get off the strings. Of course, you can pull off any stragglers. Now, I have also done this by blending my sweet potato mixture in a food processor, and that will blend together the strings. Whatever you decide to do, honey, you got to address the strings, okay? I'm going to add a stick of butter and a cup of brown sugar and a half of a cup of white sugar. I like to add anywhere from a cup and a half to 2 cups of sugar, but I start off with a cup and a half because you don't know how sweet your sweet potatoes are, okay? I'm going to add in some vanilla as well as a little bit of lemon juice, cinnamon, ginger, salt, and I'm going to grate in some fresh nutmeg, all right? I'm also going to beat in 4 eggs. You can use either a cup of heavy cream, half and half, or evaporated milk. Use whatever is best for your budget. Of course, my favorite is heavy cream because that is richer, but the other options taste just the same. Plus, you've already bought the half and half for the macaroni and cheese, so you can just use the rest of it here, okay? I'm going to blend this together, and then this is when I'm going to put in my 4 eggs. Once I made the mixture and I tasted it, I realized that it needed that extra half a cup of sugar. So I ended up adding that extra half cup for a total of 2 cups of sugar. All right. I also added a little bit more spices. You know, you guys can do that to taste. I'm going to blend this together, and now it is time to add it into my pie crust. I just let them cool for about 2 or 3 minutes out the oven, and I'm going to try to divide it as evenly as possible. You guys gave me some tips on how I could get the top of my sweet potato pie smooth, so I am going to try shaking them a little bit to get them out as smooth as possible. Okay, and then I am going to be baking these in the oven at 350 degrees for between 50 minutes to 1 hour. If you make the homemade crust, I have found that it takes a little bit longer to get the pie to set, okay, for whatever reason. So that's why mine took about 1 hour. However, when I have used the store-bought crust in the past, I felt like my pies took about 50 minutes. So just watch it. Now, I don't want the crust to get too brown, so when there was about 20 minutes of the cook time left, I added a little bit of foil to the one that I crimped with the fork because it was getting a little too brown for my liking. For the best flavor, I think it's best to make your sweet potato pies the night before. We are going to round everything out with a very simple chicken gravy. I'm going to add a little bit of butter, some garlic, and about 2 tablespoons of flour. And I'm just going to saute that for about a minute until the flour is lightly browned. Now, I didn't have a lot of drippings from the chicken, so I am going to go in and sort of make my own broth with a combination of water and chicken bouillon. All right. I'm also going to use a little bit of half and half just to give a nice little bit of creaminess. And then I'm going to put in some salt, pepper, and a little bit of Chef Pomperdon's Poultry Magic. So I'm making the chicken broth now with the Better Than Bouillon. Now, if you don't have the Poultry Magic, then you just use the bouillon and a little salt and a little pepper, and that is perfectly fine for a simple chicken gravy. You're going to let this simmer in total for about 4 to 5 minutes. You want to continuously stir it so that there is no lumps. And this is a delicious creamy gravy that tastes nice on biscuits, chicken, and the dressing. Let me know if you enjoyed my budget Thanksgiving meal. I don't think this is bad for about 55 bucks. Of course, you know, you're going to have some spices, a little vanilla, things like that already in your cabinet, but I think this is great. You guys know that I love you and Jesus loves you. I'm so thankful for you all supporting my channel. God bless all of you guys, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.